All right. Hello again, everybody. We're going to go on and get started. We were waiting for a few more folks to join us, but we know your time is very valuable. So we're going to get started today. I'm Melissa Hendrick, and this is a very fun webinar for us to have when we showcase our clients to talk about AR automation and the results of that. So I'm going to be able to introduce ourselves a little bit. And so Whit is operating in the background. He's going to advance our slides. So again, Whit, if you would, we're going to get on to a little bit of housekeeping. Slide. So again, this is supposed to be a very interactive, right? This is why we bring our clients to you. So if you have questions, please put them into the chat bot, and Whit will kind of signal to me, and if we don't get to your question immediately during the session, run out of time or anything like that, rest assured we'll have somebody follow up with you following the webinar to get back with any questions. So if you want to learn more about Lockstep, there's our website. It's lockstep.io. It's got a lot of great thought leadership and blogs. And so I encourage you to get on our blog, get the latest updates. And if you're not following us on LinkedIn, I would invite you to do that, because we also post a lot of thought leadership across socials. Whit, next one. So clearly, I'm Melissa. Been chatting with you. And today I get to have one of my very favorite clients who works with us is Mike Melka. He is CFO of Pondurance, and he is formerly of Avenue Insights, by which he brought AR automation to Avenue Insights with Lockstep. So he's a senior finance and operations executive with a very strong proficiency in value creation for high growth technology and service companies. Mike, as I said, is a CFO of Pondurance. And Pondurance is a cybersecurity focused company that combines technology with human intelligence. Sounds like he's definitely much smarter than I am on that one. So prior to this role, Mike served as CFO of Avenue Insights and Analytics, managing a finance team through a series of rapid acquisitions. And prior to Avenue Insights, Mike held senior finance roles in a number of organizations such as Social Growth Technologies, FTI, Consulting, PayPal. So his resume reads like a who's who. So Mike, we're really glad to have you here today and welcome you to the webinar.
Well, thank you for that, Melissa. Really looking forward to diving in a little deeper on AR automation. You know, I'm very, very passionate about financial technology and how to make all of our lives, a little easier and a little smoother. So looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Again, so glad to have you here today. So right quick, guys, how this is going to flow, and don't get bored with us, but I think it's important that we do two things. Is we need to level set about Lockstep. Why are we an award-winning AR automation solution in this space for mid-market companies, right? And then again, it's important that we all are operating off the same hymnal and understanding of what AR is, automation is. And then I'm going to turn it over to Mike, who's going to walk us through how he went through the AR automation selection process, what challenges was his company faced with when they turned to automation. And he's going to share with you a little bit about the benefits of AR automation post-implementation and using it for a number of years. And then he's going to give you a little bit of insight of, hey, if you're going to go down this path, here are some things that you need to keep in mind as you're vetting solutions out there. So we'll go through the About Lockstep pretty quick. And so Whit, if you'll move us through the next slide. As I shared, we're an award-winning AR automation platform recognized by some of the major thought leaders and organizations in there. And we basically, our mantra is we want to connect the world's accounting teams together so they can work better together, right? And because we have so many clients, we know that on average, when our clients implement AR automation, they improve their cash flow by over 30%, and they reduce their delinquencies by 50%. And we also know that they recognize over 20x ROI on their investment. We process over 1.5 million invoices per month across the globe. And again, I'm very proud of the awards that we have been receiving for our AR automation. So you guys can see them. So very proud of that. So we've been around for a while, and we know our stuff. So next one, Whit. Okay, so what is AR automation, right? It's a cloud-based software. We do both cloud and on-premise. Majority of our customers option for the cloud-based. It integrates with your accounting system, or some people call it a finance system, some people call it an ERP, whatever that is. And it's designed to streamline and simplify your AR collections activities across all your customers, right? And so this one, when you're looking at solutions, it's very important that they have the following attributes. They should have automated communications. There should be a customer self-service portal. There should be collections activity management. There should be a cash application in there, as well as reporting and forecasting. And Mike will tell you later about how his company leveraged each one of these key features that are included in the Lockstep platform. All right, next bit. We serve great brands. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but one of the things that Lockstep brings to the table is a very diversified client portfolio. And that allows us to share best practices across all our customers when we bring on new customers. So for example, if we see a workflow that a customer has that we know is like another customer, same industry or whatever, and we've already done some best practices, we will be proactive. Our implementation team will be proactive with you saying, you know what, have you ever considered doing it this way? That if you don't, we also have very configurable workflows that don't need to be changed, that can be mapped to where you are exactly. So understand we're very industry agnostic. We have some great brand portfolios and champions like Mike out there that they're there to help you in the selection process. Next, flip. So who do we integrate with, right? It does us no good to integrate with one, right? So we've got a who's who of partners that we have integrated with over the years. And again, as I said, both cloud and on-premise. So, you know, we were from the Sage ecosystem to Epicor, to Acumatica, NetSuite, Microsoft, QuickBooks, all of those we have the existing integrations with. Next one, Whit. All right, so here we go. So I get, and Mike again will elaborate on this, but you know, after doing AR automation for so many clients, you know, we've really gotten to know what AR automation can do. And I don't know how many of you guys are out there that are using email and spreadsheets and data exports to manage your receivable or collections process. We both know it's highly inefficient. It's very boring. There's no way to track it. You have very fragmented, incomplete data. Your staff is doing repetitive one-off emails, you know, lots of cut and paste, never knowing if somebody has gotten the email, having to go find the PDFs, resend them, right? No visibility into the collector's activity. So are they making their calls? Are they following up in a timely manner? You know, you have limited visibility in your cash position, what's coming in and what's your DSO. And when you scale, right, without automation, you have to add headcount. And that's a very inefficient way and an effective way. And then needless to say, if you're on the phone all day trying to collect cash from your clients, you know, you're going to have frustrated team members. So AR automation really frees up those team members to focus on more strategic value-added initiatives instead of spending their days, you know, chasing the dollars and chasing the customers with calls. All right, next one, Whit. All right, so our platform, just as we talked about a little bit earlier, coincidentally has all those 5 major features that you should look for when you're looking to automate. Again, automated customer communications, activity, collections management, customer service, self-service rather, cash application management are all important, forecasting and reporting. And so the Lockstep Receivable platform has all of those. Now, why? Why automate, right? What can you expect with this after, and Mike will tell you, every client is different. The benefits are different. Some are all encompassing, some only have a little, depends on where they focus on. But with the next slide. So this is what we typically see when customers automate, right? They increase their working capital, they increase their cash from operations. Again, free up that staff time to go and focus on those very high value strategic initiatives. It increases your shareholder value, and you see an average 20x on your ROI. So if you're considering it, these are really good KPIs to take a pre-benchmark measurement of, so that post AR automation, you can really see and report up if your CFO or CEO, whoever you're reporting to, what the return is and how your KPIs are improving post automation. Okay, next one, Whit. Now I get to turn it over to Mike. So everybody out there, thank you for giving me a chance to level set about why we are a thought leader in the AR space, what AR is, what it should include, and what are the benefits of it. All right, so this is it. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mike. Mike didn't do too bad, stayed within the 7 minutes, so that was pretty good. So introducing Mike Melka again from Pondurance, formerly of Avenue Insights. So Mike, again, thanks for having us here today. I'm going to turn it over to you. You know, you're very familiar with AR automation, but tell us a little bit about Avenue Insights challenges that led you to bring automation into Avenue Insights.
Absolutely, Melissa. Well, first, just a little bit of background on Avenue. Avenue is a provider of software and solutions, really servicing local governments. They were founded through multiple carve-out acquisitions of kind of the local government divisions from large public companies who ended up divesting those assets. And, Avenue, we were founded with the first acquisition in 2017. And we implemented Sage Intacct as our financial system. And from our initial kind of rollout, we deployed a pretty typical B2B accounts receivable and collections process. We used the Intacct billing module to start, and then really we used the AR aging in Excel to manage our collections. And like many folks and many small businesses, we just started for the oldest and biggest accounts and worked down every week in terms of our collections procedures. We initially had a team of one person focused solely on billings and collections, and they spend about 20% of their time billing and 80% of it on collections and call it AR maintenance. And to be honest, in those early days, and when it was just that one business we acquired, we were working fine, and we saw decent results. But a year after that, in 2018, we actually tripled overnight with one pretty massive acquisition. So we added 2 more billing and collection staff, and we successfully integrated that acquisition. But it became very clear that the manual processes we had in place just would not scale. And how we got there was, our shared AR inbox was just, it was out of hand, right? We were missing, communication. We were, struggling to understand who's responsible for which email in there, what action. We were ultimately spending more time just tracking the individual customer contacts we were making and updating notes fields in Excel than we were actually collecting and identifying, at-risk accounts. And naturally, our DSO, soared to call it, over 60 days, which for us was really high. I know, everybody's different. And our cash flow was getting impacted. We needed to borrow from our credit line, and just our customer service levels decreased, right? We weren't able to respond as timely, and one of our core values was to be highly responsive to all of our customers. And we just saw that lacking, and it started to have an impact. And our board of directors saw that impact as well. So we just really got strained, and we really had 2 choices. One, we could just add a bunch of staff and just staff up to do it, or we could really think outside the box and plan ahead and look at ourselves and look at our processes and find ways to basically do what we do better. And that's when we went down the automation route. So this would be a good time to flip slides here.
Right. So when you were looking at, but if you could go back for a minute, Whit, when you were looking at it and you were talking to either up the chain or down the chain, right? Did you find that, your staff was somewhat put off by the thought of AR automation? Did you have to do any upselling or downselling to get buy-in to go this way?
So it's a great question. And my staff initially, there was a little trepidation. They were, pretty confident in our processes, albeit, the volume was just heavy. But that said, that they hadn't previously used any kind of automation, right? The processes that they've had in the past, and they have, decades of experience with, were very manual. So I think introducing the concept of AR automation was a little outside the comfort zone. And it did take, it did take a lot of internal selling kind of downstream, if you will, to get them on board with actually changing what they do. Particularly when you're moving as fast as we were at Avenue, it's kind of, scary to change the wings on the flying plane. But you do it, and we're fortunate. I can look back and say we were successful, but kind of convincing my team that it was going to be okay and it was going to be worth it was, it took some time.
Yeah, and I hear that consistently across our client clients when they talk about it is, and you know, when we talk to people up the chain and down the chain, you know, you've got the decision makers like you, and you've got the influencers, and then you have the actual users of it. And you know, downstream, often people are thinking, hey, it's going to eliminate my job, right? That's the first thing. Automation eliminates jobs. Well, you know, it actually makes you able to focus on more value-added initiatives versus, you know, that manual day in and day out beat that they have to go through to do collections. So I think that's very consistent. So thanks for that insight and that reassurance to folks that are on the webinar, but more importantly, and we'll talk a little bit about how you went about getting that buy-in, maybe more tactically. So thanks. All right, next slide, Whit. So nope, benefits, if you'll go back, Whit. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, okay, you bring AR automation in, you've got all this acquisition stuff is going, and, you know, and you've got people going, look, we're going through all these acquisitions, and now you're bringing in an automation solution all at the same time. Our head's going to explode. But, you know, it's all about the end result. So tell us a little bit about that, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, it dovetails a lot into, you know, the narrative from earlier in that, you know, look, we were starting to feel the strain. You know, we had literally outgrown our process we had built in the early days. And, you know, and it's just frankly because of the mere size. And now that we're a much larger company, and, you know, and we really need to focus on how we can continue to scale because we had a lot more acquisitions in the pipeline. And getting that, you had mentioned it earlier, getting that buy-in, you know, was crucial, but also explaining that, look, you know, we're not going to eliminate your job. We're going to help you prepare to ingest all the growth we're about to have, right? Because, you know, we just grew from, you know, 1 to 3. Well, we can't just keep growing at that scale. We have to be a little bit more efficient in how we do it, or we'll all kind of pull our hair out and just be, you know, doing all grunt work and no real value add work. So, you know, once we did, I'll step forward, you know, we made the decision to bring in Lockstep to really help automate our whole receivable process, right? It was really we're just going to do things differently. And that's what Lockstep enabled us to do. And, you know, frankly, I was shocked at the initial results and honestly how quickly we saw them. I was naturally skeptic, but, you know, just seeing the DSO improvement alone, right? It's your key metric is cash in the door, you know, aging buckets shifting to the left, and you know, your DSO coming down is within 3 months, right? You get 3 billing cycles, let's call it. We were able to see that come down. You know, we did do monthly billing, and we got it back down to earth. Call it 40 days, which for municipal governments is pretty good. Within 6 months. So we really got to where we needed to be within 6 months of implementation. You know, that enabled me to, you know, repay what I had borrowed on my line of credit once you know, when the DSO kind of crept up. You know, it also gave us predictability, and it gave me predictability in that I could be flexible with my liquidity needs so that I could make more strategic investments, fully understanding where, you know, what cash was coming in with a high degree of certainty, so that I could either, you know, put off a big check that I had or a big investment I would have to make. And it gave me that reliable predictability, which again, you know, was one of those things where I had low expectations, but ended up using it a lot. But ultimately, you know, to me as CFO, the most kind of impressive results that I saw was in the team, in the time the team was saving from just doing their job and the way their jobs were being transformed. You know, just simply getting out of Excel and I'll paint a little picture. You know, the way we tracked our AR and really steered our collections was we took the AR aging in a given week, and we would filter it by, you know, oldest and biggest accounts, and we put cell notes or you know, we type in notes and saying, okay, well, on this day we called the customer, no answer, and then we go through the list that way. And then the next week we'd have to go back and, you know, put last week's notes, compare it to make sure we aren't, you know, overbearing the customer, or, you know, that we weren't duplicating efforts here. And that was just a pain when you're doing that for hundreds and thousands of customers. There's just nothing there. But now that we have a system where we make a phone call, we log the task, we note it, great. So when that action comes up again, it's right. Everything we need is right there, and it's real time. So, go ahead.
If I can ask you a question about the automated communication. So, the Lockstep platform has those built-in templates that you can automate. So instead of, your collector emailing each time, they can, do you leverage the automated communication scheduler and the templates in the system?
Absolutely.
And so how so?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we do use the cadences for sure. It was, so rather than us, I'll go back to my AR aging example, rather than us going back to the aging team who we need to touch, now, we simply put the cadences in place to touch a delinquent customer every month, and the message will differ.
Without using Excel as a reminder, right?
Exactly. So now, rather than going down, ticking off my list of Excel, I actually have the inverse. I'm going to touch every customer that has a balance over this, that, and the other, and number of days, 30, 60, 90, et cetera, with the exception for these key VIP clients, which I will give, white glove treatment to because they're important, or there's some, issues we need to work around and we don't want to automate. So now I go from only having my, top escalated, accounts being pursued to all of my accounts are being pursued. And I get to focus on the ones that really need my attention, and I can give it my attention. And that's that. That alone right there, it transforms how you perform collections. It's simply, it takes so much of the doing, I use air quotes, and the doing of the AR to really managing.
Right.
We're now managing the responses, and then when we see we don't get them, and then to take it a step further, the payment portal with every one of those notices, it's not just sending nastygrams saying, hey, do you know your bill's over? It's here's how you can pay, and oh, by the way, it's a link you just click. You don't have to log in. It's a highly specialized link.
Yeah, I was wondering if you use the magic link and how you leverage it, and it would be helpful for you to tell the folks that are attending today a little bit about that magic link and why you use it and what the benefits were, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're all familiar with logging in and paying our cell phone or our utility bill or whatever. And we have a nice little login and portal. And just one more thing to remember, with Lockstep, they'll send you a unique link, right? In all communications, you'll get a unique link that goes right to your account. So you can use that link to pay, that particular invoice. You can use that link to see all of the receivables, or rather, or payables if you're the customer, all the invoices that you owe, that you've paid, et cetera. So it gives you that full access. And not only from accelerating the payment, but that's one less query that'll go through your AR inbox, or that your AR team has to, attend to, because now they can be self-service. They can go in, a customer can go in and just get what they need and only interact when we need to investigate.
Yeah, we have a lot of people that really love it because how much of your contact information in your database is accurate at one time, and that's what some of our customers talk about. That magic link allows those customers to go and update their contact information and their W-2s or whatever it is that they need without having to reach out to them. And again, it's that self-service portion of it. So I appreciate your insight on that. I have a question. Did you have a KPI of what percentage of time your staff spent solely on collections before AR automation versus what it is today post AR automation?
So they spent 80% of their time really just focused on collections, and that's all aspects of collections, whether it's actually making the calls, sending the emails, but then tracking it as well. So accumulating all the notes per se and giving them to me when I would bug them for them, et cetera. And then working with our client facing people who were dealing with the clients, et cetera. So now, or in their current state, it's probably 40-60, where 40% is on collections and 60% is on more value-added opportunities. Things like improving the actual invoicing and optimizing kind of upstream activities and preparing the invoice, which, I know we don't, Avenue rather didn't particular, we weren't there yet, but we were focused, we were working internally to make those improvements. We had our AR team, help with our ASC 606 conversion, right? Just helping, review some revenue terms, et cetera. So it really does free up a lot of time, a considerable amount of time. And just from a KPI perspective, I think we literally cut it in half as a percentage.
Well, and not to mention having happy employees also gets that, that additional effort out, right? When they're happier, they're more productive. So we have a question also that just come in. Do your clients ever complain about receiving automated reminders? That's a really good question. Because it gets to the point that white glove, you have some clients that you don't, you want to handle yourself. But, speaking of the rest of that,
totally. And look, absolutely. We had a client, a handful of clients that said, hey, why am I getting these notices? But that's a great thing, because anytime you can have a customer reach out, I think it's good. But at the end of the day, they're only getting the notice if they're past due in their payment. So helping them kind of see, well, great. Well, if you need us to tweak your, if you don't want to get this because you cut checks in your system by net 45, fine. We can make that change so that you only get a notice if you're beyond your typical pay period, for example. So it does, we do get that for sure. For us, we look at it as a touch point that we can help improve, but also kind of remind them that they're getting it because they're not getting it to us, their check or their payment to us, when they said they would.
And I'm going to go a little bit deeper into the question about, and because I see that as well. Now, do you use sequences to say, okay, this group of customers, we only reach out to if they're late beyond 60 days, but these customers, we reach out more frequently from a reminder because they're past 60 days regularly or 90 days. Do you have any of those kinds of sequences, or is it one and done for everybody at the same time?
No, we definitely have 60 and 90. We definitely have different ones. The most prevalent is the do not touch clients, just because there's a special situation there. But that we do have what we'll call an accelerated sequence, where we're going to hit the client even before the invoice is due, just so it doesn't get lost, because there is a bad history there, or a negative history, I should say. So we will have we don't go overkill, and we don't want to over customize it, but we do have multiple different streams of sequencing that we use.
Awesome. Okay.
And I think one you had mentioned the changing the contact information. We didn't see that too much. Local governments don't change contact information or mailing addresses too often. But what we'd like to do is the welcome email, right? When we trigger your first invoice to a customer, or when we set a customer up in Intacct, again, because this is all fully integrated, it will trigger we programmed it to trigger an automated notification to the client contact saying, hey, welcome to Avenue. We want to make this a seamless transition for you and a seamless experience. And, here's what you can expect, from our invoicing team, et cetera. And I think, and it introduces the client to the actual, process of payment, the online portal, how we work, and who their contact is, et cetera. I think that went over.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I got you.
It went over very well with our clients.
Yeah. Well, I can only imagine, especially, when you look at just how much, the manual nature, the headaches that it caused. Christian, can you tell us a little bit about the flow back and forth between Lockstep and Sage Intacct, the integration perspective, and maybe what was a big aha moment for you with that?
Well, I would say, go into detail, but the fact of the matter is it's pretty simple, right? And systems like Intacct, NetSuite, and even QuickBooks Online, right? That they were built to simply talk play nice in the sandbox, if you will. So when we plugged Intacct into Lockstep, I mean, it was quite literally just the flick of a setting, and we started syncing and syncing data back and forth. And it's how much you sync. If you have a data capacity issue with your network provider, you can make it hourly, you can make it daily, whatever that looks like for you. But for us, it was, I remember doing it. We were on with the implementation consultant, and okay, well, here, I need you to log in here, logged in there, and boom. And then it started connecting and populating as we went. So the integration, was just seamless, frankly, and fast. And that to me is key, because different people are going to use the various systems in different ways, and it's crucial to have kind of one version of the truth, if you will. And so if I looked at, if I were in a board meeting and I was looking at Lockstep, I needed 100% certainty that the same data in Lockstep was going to be the same data in the GL, and there were never any exceptions.
Makes total sense. Awesome. Thank you for that. Thanks for answering that. Whit, if you could, we're gonna move on, Mike, unless there's anything else. I think this is as important as the benefits. Is there are key things that you went in thinking about, right, when you were looking at AR automation, and then there were key learnings that you took away. So there are folks on this webinar that are somewhere in their journey of evaluating AR automation or a different provider or whatever it is. And so I think this is a very important slide to say, what were the aha moments, and what advice would you give to the folks that are attending and listening to you today?
So I think what's interesting, when I think about any kind of automation, is AR automation, collections automation is just, you don't hear about it as much. AP gets all the hype, and there's probably lots of listeners who have some sort of AP automation or AP workflow, but very few think about AR. But in reality, they're very similar processes in a lot of ways, but they're also very different. And you can garner a lot different types of efficiencies that because it's just not as popular, maybe, or I don't know why, but you just don't think about it. And that's why I'm excited to really champion this, with Lockstep, because it really has had such a tangible impact to me. But just overall, when you think about trying to scale for the future and to harness the growth that your business is achieving, it's never too early to automate. If I, kind of what I tell my peers is, if you've ever missed a customer follow-up from your shared email box, or if you've ever had difficulty really assigning tasks because, or frankly, just managing a shared email accounting box, you will absolutely see gains from automation, across any platform. People don't think about it from a AR perspective as often, because you control what goes out, right? You're controlling the outflow of the documents. Most people focus on ingesting invoices from vendors, but they forget that it's the collections that is equally as time consuming as accounts payable. So, if you are managing anything, from your billing and collections in a shared email box, you will benefit. And the sooner you can do it, you will absolutely see a positive return on that investment. And honestly, if you're not touching every delinquent customer every month, then you're literally leaving money on the table. And by just focusing on what you have the capacity to handle, because yes, they might be $100 that may not be material for your business, but that $100, when you multiply it by 50, becomes meaningful. And when you can do that and guarantee it, it then allows your team to really focus more on the high touch and high, very challenging customers, where you need to spend more time, where you can then increase your chance of collection on those key customers. So that's really what I tell my peers often about it. And there's such an opportunity here for Lockstep to just continue to expand on what they already do. And what sets Lockstep unique, what makes Lockstep unique in this space is they're not taking an AP workflow and turning it into an AR workflow, because those workflows and processes are inherently different. Lockstep built from the ground up their platform, and that was part of my evaluation criteria, was just understanding, do they know where I'm coming from, or are they, just really technologists who are trying to, rinse AP workflow into AR workflow, and it doesn't work that way. And that's what really impressed me about this team a number of years ago when I was soliciting them. And this is at the core of this product. It was built to manage collections, to solve the problems that we are having, and that to me has gone just tremendously throughout the entire process. So kudos to Lockstep for building and kind of spearheading to everyday businesses like Avenue, and gave us the automation, the automation capabilities that were typically only reserved for larger enterprises with brand name ERPs.
Right. I think bravo to you, because I think I hear that often, and I'm glad that you iterated that is an AP solution masquerading as an AR also can do AR. I think it's very, very important that the audience hear directly from somebody who walks in their shoes every day. The two are not the same, right? It's like putting a round peg in a square hole, so to speak. So I think sharing that insight with them as folks are evaluating solutions out there was really insightful, Mike. Were there any, so you mentioned earlier, and I don't know if it was a line of credit or a loan that you referenced, excuse me, you were able, because you decreased your DSO, you ended up bringing in more working capital faster than you used to, and you were able to pay off this line of credit or loan much faster than you would have. And I imagine as a result of that, there was an interest savings on that as well, right?
100%. So if I can do the back of the napkin math and tell you that more than paid for that interest alone, more than paid for my Lockstep subscription. So there, our ROI calc for you guys was pretty easy. But yes, that's the beauty of the AR automation period. It is being able to leverage your existing resources more efficiently, and having those existing resources, scale with the business without having to build an army of collectors and an army of AR managers. So
yeah,
it ultimately does come down to cash flow. And, for us, and this is, just really the biggest KPI for Avenue and myself was, I had mentioned earlier, we went from 1 biller to 3 biller collections, 1 AR staff to 3 AR staff. And, since then, we got overwhelmed and then deployed the automation tool with Lockstep. And we had an employee leave to retire, and we did not backfill that individual. So now we are still at, to this day, 2 individuals for thousands of customers. And again, I know every business is different, but we were able to actually work on a lower staff without needing to backfill, and without my current team raising their hands saying, we're so underwater. It really did work, and we continue to grow, and we continue to expand into new geographies, et cetera. And that is the proof for our pudding that nobody can argue with, and I'm actually quite proud of that fact.
That's awesome. Let me ask you, we had a question come in about implementation. Did you provide the scope for implementation, and how did the implementation go? And was there, should you look for a vendor that has post-implementation and training and support, or it's one and done? Can you shine some light around that question for this person?
Yes. So really, from an implementation perspective, your experience is going to vary, and that really just it's based on where you are in your current collections process. And even if you don't really have a process, you just oh well, if it's a bad account, I'm going to pursue it. Coming in and being open and listening to all the wealth of experience that the Lockstep team has, right? They've been there. They've been doing this for a long time. They can recommend a workflow, So when you work together, I mean, that you can literally integrate the system and launch it, you know, in hours, right? But it's about designing it how you want it, because it is, you know, highly, you know, configurable to whatever you need. The variability in the implementation is to what degree do you want to configure it? And that's going to vary by customer. For us, I truly wanted to lean on every best practice I could lean on. So I really did tap the team to help me design what's going to be best for Avenue. And that meant a few more weeks, but that was because I asked for it. We could have been done in 2 weeks if we just did what's out of the box, and that would have been fine. But by getting that, it allowed me to get to my team's buy-in too, by kind of hand-holding them and tiptoeing, you know, walking before we start running. So, you know, ours was, you know, a few weeks longer than maybe it could have been, but it's because we chose to, you know, be a little bit more scientific, and we wanted to make sure we were doing it right because we were learning as well.
Well, that was the point, and thank you for bringing that back around. When I showed our list of impressive list of clients, is that's because we're industry agnostic. You know, you took advantage of all that key learning that we have across various industries to say, hey, you know, how have other people approached this workflow or solved for this issue, right? I think that's it, not necessarily.
Yep.
I applaud you for saying, well, we've always done it this way, so there's not a more efficient way. And I think your point of leveraging your implementation stream and their across the industry knowledge, you know, is something that they really should do when they select a vendor partner, right? Is to really evaluate, are they going to bring best practices to the table to give you that guidance. Okay, one more question before we wrap up. Sorry about that. Well, I'm going to say one more, but I'm watching the time. Do you have one standard user or different users?
We do have different users.
Okay.
So we have, you know, what we'll call an administrator, or I think the term is manager in the system, but we do have kind of managers and users just to segregate duties to, you know, align different tasks with different roles. So yeah, we do leverage the different, I wouldn't say we're heavy users of the profiles, but it's really just to keep, you know, keep things segregated in terms of tasks and to a certain extent like groups of clients. But yeah, that we definitely use that functionality. Awesome.
All right, thank you. I'm trying to be cognizant of everybody's time. Want to wrap up at half till or quarter till the hour. So, you know, Mike, it's always great, you know, visiting with you and having you share your story across your peers and you know, if anybody on the call, well, if you'll progress to the next slide for us, if anybody on the call would like to learn more about the case study or success story that we did with Avenue, it's out on our website at lockstep.io underneath the resources tab, and just take a look for that. But, you know, Mike, we at Lockstep can talk all day long about what AR automation is, right? But, you know, we're technology and I'm in marketing. We haven't walked a mile in CFOs and accounting managers' shoes. So having you on here to kind of share your wisdom, your insight, your thought leadership with folks that are thinking about doing this or even thinking about changing, you know, vendor partners is just, it's incredible. I know we're taking, you know, 45 minutes to an hour out of your day. So on behalf of everybody that's attending the webinar today, on behalf of, you know, we love our client champions at Lockstep and all our clients, but the power is in your voice, not our voice. So thank you very, very much for taking time to share everything with our attendees today.